So right off the bat, my opinions on this are not going to be the same as the general consensus. How do I know this for sure? Well, I asked ChatGPT to recommend the best beginner film cameras in 2025, and I have some issues with the results. Here's what ChatGPT had to say. As of 2025, some of the best beginner film cameras include Canon AE1 program, a classic choice with automatic exposure, Nikon FM10, a great manual camera that's easy to learn, Pentax K1000, known for its simplicity and rugged design, Olympus OM10, compact and user-friendly with a great lens selection. Now, let's not be too hard on AI for this one. The Canon AE1, the Pentax K1000, and even the OM10, which if you watch the channel, you'll know I love, are all recommended as great beginner-friendly film cameras. But are they really? Well, I think to answer this question properly, you need to ask some qualifying questions to the person that wants to know about what beginner film camera will be good for them. The most important question is, are they a complete newbie beginner to photography, or are they already versed in things like the exposure triangle? Why exactly are they looking to get into film photography? Are they just wanting the film look because they've seen it online, or are they really connected to the analog romantic experience? And what style of photography are they planning to do? Is it still life, landscapes, stylized portraits, street photography? Just, there's so many different types of photography. We need to know more. So before giving someone a recommendation, these qualifying questions are really important. For instance, a particular photographer might be really skilled with manual exposure and been shooting street photography for a decade, but they want to make the jump to film photography. For them, the advice would vary greatly to somebody who has only ever used their iPhone for photography. So do you see what I mean here? As a caveat, I honestly don't think that if you are brand new to photography in general and you're learning it from scratch, that film is the way to go. I mean, it is so expensive. All the power to you if you can afford that and you want to do that, but it's not the best way to get immediate feedback. But if that's what you want to do and you're hell-bent on it, then definitely keep watching this video. And I actually have a compromise solution for newbie photographers that I will share at the end of this video, so make sure you keep watching to hear that. But I digress. Let's go back to where we began. So why don't I agree with these ChatGPT recommendations? Well, it simply assumes too much. I think it's better to assume that somebody seeking out beginner film cameras has no idea about photography and they are a complete newbie. If this is the case and they have very little knowledge about photography, then I would think that you're looking to get some runs on the board before you jump headfirst into everything. So all of those ChatGPT recommended film cameras are manual load, manual advance, and manual focus. Not very beginner friendly, if you ask me. While I love those aspects of film cameras, I would argue that those features are the exact reason why so many labs all over the world are developing rolls of film that are either blank or out of focus. So I'm on a mission to save those rolls of film and save you money by giving you actual beginner-friendly film camera recommendations. Casting my mind back to when I was a beginner film photographer, there is nothing more disheartening than spending all week shooting through one of your first rolls of film, thinking you're getting all these cool, creative shots, only to realize that the film didn't catch on and your roll was never really shot in the first place and those photos just didn't exist. Or something else goes wrong, because there are so many things that can go wrong. And when you're a beginner, this can really just put you in a mood where you don't really want to try it anymore, make you give up, make you feel like you aren't good at it. So you really want something that's going to give you a lot of success in the beginning. While I'm on this note, if you are a beginner film photographer and you're looking for information, not just on what camera to choose, but what film stock, troubleshooting things like why are my photos blank, blurry, dark, and plenty of other tips that cover the first 5 things that you need to know as a beginner film photographer, then you can grab my beginner guide linked below or head to lucylumen.com to read more about it and save yourself from blank, dark, or blurry rolls of film. So what cameras do I think are the best buys in 2025 for beginner film photographers? Assuming we are talking about beginners in the true sense of the word, there are only 2 styles of cameras that I think you should be buying. The first is an autofocus point and shoot from the late 1990s through to the early 2000s, like this affordable and very capable Pentax SBO. And the second is a modern style autofocus SLR, also from that late era. So unless compact size is a deal breaker for you beginner film photographer, then I highly recommend a late model autofocus SLR with a 50mm lens. Want to hear the good news? These are actually some of the cheapest film cameras on the market. You can buy these cameras all day long for under $100 on secondhand marketplaces, and they will provide more consistent and arguably better quality results than the vast majority of much more expensive, bulky, heavy, slow, and cumbersome cameras. Now, don't get me wrong, I love those more expensive, cumbersome cameras that I am shitting on, but I am not romantic enough about it to trick myself into thinking that they are more capable or consistent or reliable than something like a Canon Rebel G or a Nikon F60 in the hands of a beginner. I also strongly recommend seeking out a modern SLR with a built-in flash. The thing about film is it needs so much light, and when the available light runs out, even with a high-speed film stock, you are very, very likely to get an underexposed photo. Having something that is easy to use like a built-in flash is compact and will combat this issue, meaning that you can shoot in more places more often with banger results. Okay, so now you know the type of film cameras that I recommend. What about some specific examples of actual cameras that you can look up right now on eBay or Marketplace and get? My strong recommendation is that with these cameras, you stick to brands like Canon or Nikon. So this isn't because I think that Nikon and Canon are superior or the best of the camera models out there. They're definitely not any better than something like Pentax or Minolta. The reason is because of the wide availability of lens choices. The same autofocus lenses that worked on film era Nikon and Canon cameras carried over to their full frame digital SLRs. So you can buy very modern and high quality lenses across many decades. How good is that? So remember earlier in the video when I said there was a compromise for somebody who is a complete beginner but wants to get started in film? Well, I strongly suggest that those people also invest in an older model full frame DSLR like this one. These can be found for a few $100s, obviously depending on where you live, and the lenses are interchangeable with the film camera that you choose. This allows you to practice with digital and then carry over what you've learned or what you like or want to experiment more with on your film camera. Think about it like this. You could go out and spend, upwards of $500 on a film camera that has this really romantic feel to it, only to find that there's all these issues, or you're not really that interested in film, you run into trouble, you can't afford to be running rolls through it. So many different things can happen. For that same amount of money, or maybe even less, $300, $400, depending on where you live in the world, you could get both of these. And don't worry about image quality, because DSLRs like this one that are from more than a decade ago are going to be more than enough for what you need. So what about those ChatGPT cameras? Okay, if you're already feeling confident with how to load your camera and you feel like you can ace those, then those recommendations are totally fine, if not just a bit more expensive than they need to be, because they get recommended so often, so everyone is trying to buy them. I have a couple of other recommendations for you before you jump into buying a Canon AE1. If you do want a manual film camera, don't sleep on Minolta. They tend to be less expensive than other model film cameras, and in my opinion, they are just as good. Minolta made great gear. If you're a beginner and you want to go fully all manual, which I really don't recommend that you do, I would go for an old school Nikkomat model. They are basically a Nikon, but cheaper and have access to all the same lenses. So there you have it. My advice might not be sexy or cool, but I truly believe that these later model SLRs are the way to go. You can start off shooting on auto and let the camera make all the decisions for you, so you can focus on things like subject, style, lighting, and what you really want to be saying as a photographer, which I believe are the most important things. All the other stuff can come later. Better yet, those cameras will auto load and rewind for you, which removes a lot of the problems that beginner film photographers have. You can also use modes like portrait, sports, and landscape to help you figure out what kind of settings those type of situations need, which I think is an amazing way to learn, give you success, show you that you can take really great photos, develop an eye for photography, And then once you're in that world and feeling confident, you can move along to something like this Nikkormat. Let me know below what your recommendation for a beginner film photographer would be. I would love to know if you agree or disagree with what I'm saying. And if you're a beginner watching this, I am so excited for your journey with film photography. Don't forget, I have that helpful guide covering the first 5 things you need to know as a beginner film photographer. Follow along for more tips and inspiration. DM me, share your first roll or what camera you bought as well. I love chatting to newbies in film photography.